back, we were reading a story titled The Room of Many Colors from this collection of short stories by Ruskin Bond. And we had stopped at the point um, where we read this jingle or rhyme. Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday, christened on a Tuesday, married on Wednesday, took ill on Thursday, was on Friday, died on Saturday, buried on Sunday. That is the end of Solomon Grundy. So we stop there and we'll continue from there. Now, there's a lot of just a trivial chatter which the author has written in this very rambling story. And how the ayah is telling story to Ruskin Bond. And the ayah told the story of a princess, of a snake who married a princess. At first, the princess did not want to marry the snake. But then the snake said, if you don't marry me, I'll bite you and kill you. So that settled that. So she married the snake, and the snake led this bride away and took her to a treasure inside a cave. And he said, I was a prince in my former life. And so all this treasure which was mine is now yours. And being a very good snake, he vanished. So the princess had all that treasure. Then there's a little about snakes, and they won't attack you if you do not, if you keep away from them, you leave them alone. And the snakes will be in the tall grass, so you avoid the grass. But sometimes they cross the road where there is no grass. And one day, he asked his father, are all snakes poisonous? And the father said, yes, of course. They're all poisonous, but only a few are poisonous enough to kill man. Others use their poison to kill rats or frogs or things which they then eat for food. One afternoon, while father was at school, Ayah found a snake in the bathtub. It was in the early morning, and so the snake could have been a lucky one. Ayah was frightened and ran into the garden calling for help. Dukhi came running. Dukhi is the gardener, came running. Ayah ordered me to stay outside while they went after the snake. And it was while I was alone in the garden, an unusual circumstance, since Dukhi was nearly always there, that I remembered the Rani's request. On an impulse, I went to the nearest rose bush and plucked the largest rose, pricking my thumb in the process. And then, without waiting to see what had happened to the snake, I started up the steps to the top of the old palace. When I got to the top, I knocked on the door of the Rani's room. Getting no reply, I walked along the balcony until I reached another doorway. There were wooden panels around the door, with elephants, camels, and turban warriors carved into it. As the door was open, I walked boldly into the room and then stood still in astonishment. The room was filled with a strange light. There were windows going right round the room, and each small window pane was made of a different colored glass. The sun came through one window, flung red and green and purple colors on the figure of the little Rani, who stood there with her face pressed to the glass. She spoke to me without turning from the window. This was my favorite room. I have all the colors here. I can see a different world through each pane of glass. Come, join me. And she beckoned to me, her small hand fluttering like a delicate butterfly. I went up to the Rani, and she was only a little taller than me, and we were able to share the same window pane. See, it's a red world, she said. The garden below, the palace, and the lake were all tinted red. I watched the Rani's world for a little while and then touched her on the arm and said, I have brought you a rose. She started away from me and her eyes looked frightened. She would not look at the rose. Oh, why did you bring it? She cried, wringing her hands. He'll be arrested now. Who will be arrested? I asked. The prince, of course. But I took it. I said, no one saw me. Aya and Duki were inside the house catching a snake. Did they catch it? She asked, forgetting about the rose. I don't know. I didn't wait to see. They should follow the snake instead of catching it. It may lead them to a treasure. All snakes have treasures to guard, I said. This seemed to confirm what Aya had been telling me. And I resolved that I would follow the next snake that I met. Don't you like the rose then? I asked. Did you steal it? She asked. Yes. Good, flowers should always be stolen. There's more fragrance then, she said. Because of a man called Hitler, war had been declared in Europe, and Britain was fighting Germany. In my comic papers, the Germans were usually shown as blundering idiots. So I didn't see how Britain could possibly lose the war, nor why it should concern India, nor why it should be necessary for my father to join up. But I remember his showing me a newspaper headline which said, Bombs fall on Buckingham Palace, King and Queen safe. I expect that had something to do with it. He went to Delhi for an interview with the RAF, I was left in Aya's charge. RAF is the Royal Air Force. It was a week I remember well because it was the first time I had been left on my own. That first night I was afraid of the dark, afraid of the emptiness of the house, afraid of the howling of the jackals outside. The loud ticking of the clock was the only reassuring sound. Clocks really made themselves heard in those days. I tried concentrating on the ticking, shutting out other sounds, and the menace of the dark, but it wouldn't work. I thought I heard a faint hissing near the bed, and sat up, bathed in perspiration, certain that a snake was in the room. I shouted for Aya, and she came running, switching on all the lights. A snake, I cried. There's a snake in the room. Where, Baba? She asked. I don't know where, but I heard it. Aya looked under the bed, behind the chairs and tables, but there was no snake to be found. She persuaded me that I must have heard the breeze whispering in the mosquito curtains. But I didn't want to be left alone. I'm coming to you, I said, and followed her into her small room near the kitchen. Aya slept on a low string cot. The mattress was thin, the blanket worn and patched up, but Aya's warm and solid body made up for the discomfort of the bed. I snuggled up to her and was soon asleep. So nice. I had almost forgotten the Rani in the old palace and was about to pay her a visit when, to my surprise, I found her in the garden. I had risen early that morning and had gone running barefoot over the dew-drenched grass. No one was about, but I startled a flock of parrots, and the birds rose screeching from a banyan tree and wheeled away to some other corner of the palace grounds. I was just in time to see a mongoose scurrying across the grass with an egg in its mouth. The mongoose must have been raiding the poultry farm at the palace. I was trying to locate the mongoose's hideout and was on all fours in a jungle of tall cosmos plants when I heard the rustle of clothes and turned to find the Rani staring at me. She didn't ask me what I was doing there, but simply said, I don't think he could have gone in there. But I saw him go this way, I said. Nonsense, he doesn't live in this part of the garden. He lives in the roots of the banyan tree. But that's where the snake lives, I said. You mean the snake who was a prince? Well, that's whom I'm looking for. A snake who was a prince, I gaped at the Rani. She made a gesture of impatience with her butterfly hands and said, Tut, tut, you are only a child. You can't understand. The prince lives in the roots of the banyan tree, but he comes out early every morning. Have you seen him? No, but I saw a mongoose. The Rani became frightened. Oh dear, is there a mongoose in the garden? He might kill the prince, she said. How can a mongoose kill a prince? I asked. You don't understand, Master Bond. Princes, when they die, are born again as snakes. All princes? I asked. No, only those who die before they can marry, she said. Did your prime prince die before he could marry you? Yes, and he returned to this garden in the form of a beautiful snake, she said. Well, I said, I hope it wasn't the snake the water carrier killed last week. He killed the snake? The Rani looked horrified. She was quivering all over. It might have been the prince, she said. It was a brown snake. Oh, then that was not him, she said. She looked very relieved. Brown snakes are only ministers and people like that. It has to be a green snake to be a prince, she said. I haven't seen any green snakes here, I said. There's one living in the roots of the banyan tree. You won't kill it, will you? She said. No, not if it's really a prince, I said. And you won't let others kill it? I'll tell Aya, I said. Good. You're on my side, but be careful of the gardener. Keep him away from the banyan tree. He's always killing snakes. I don't trust him at all. She came nearer and, leaning forward a little, looked into my eyes. Blue eyes, I trust them. But don't trust green eyes. And yellow eyes are evil. I had never seen yellow eyes, I said. That's because you're pure, she said, and turned away and hurried across the lawn as though she had just remembered a very urgent appointment. The sun was up, slanting through the branches of the banyan tree, and Aya's voice could be heard calling me for breakfast. Dukhi, I said, when I found him in the garden later that day. Dukhi, don't kill the snake in the banyan tree. A snake in the banyan tree? He exclaimed, seizing his horse. No, 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 I said, I haven't seen it. But the Rani says there is one. She says it was a prince in his former life, and that we shouldn't kill it. Oh, said Dukhi, smiling to himself. The Rani says so. All right, you tell her we won't kill it, okay? Is it true that she was in love with a prince, but that he died before she could marry him? Yeah, something like that, said Dukhi. It was a long time ago, before I came here. My father says it wasn't a prince, but a commoner. Are you sure? Are you a commoner, Duki? A commoner? What is that, Chota Sahib? He asked. I'm not sure. Someone very poor, I suppose. Then I must be a commoner, said Duki. Were you in love with the Rani? I asked. Duki was so startled that he dropped his horse and lost his balance. The first time I had seen him lose his poise while squatting on his haunches. Don't say such things, Chota Sahib, he said. Why not? You will get me into trouble. Then it must be true. Duki threw up his hands in mock despair and started collecting his implements. It's true, I cried, dancing around him. And then I ran indoors to Aya and said, Aya, Duki was in love with the Rani. Aya gave a shriek of laughter and looked very serious and put her finger against my lips. Don't say such things, she said. Duki is of very low caste. People won't like it if they hear what you say. And besides, the Rani told you her prince died and turned into a snake. Well, Duki hasn't become a snake as yet, has he? True, Duki didn't look very much like a snake, though Duki didn't look as though he could be anything but a gardener. But I wasn't satisfied with his denials or with Aya's attempts to still my tongue. Hadn't Duki sent Rani a nosegay? When my father came home, he looked quite pleased with himself. What have you brought for me? Was the first question I asked. He had brought me some new books, a dartboard, and a train set. And in my excitement over examining these gifts, I forgot to ask him about the result of his trip. It was during tiffin that he told me what had happened and what was going to happen. We'll be going away soon, he said. I have joined the Royal Air Force. I'll have to work in Delhi. Oh, will you be in the war? Dad, will you fly a plane? I asked. No, I'm too old to be flying a plane. I'll be 40 years old in July. The RAF will be giving me what they call intelligence work, decoding secret messages and things like that, and I don't suppose I'll be able to tell you much about it. This didn't sound as exciting as flying planes, but it sounded important and rather mysterious. Well, I hope it's interesting, I said. Is Delhi a good place to live in? I'm not sure, he said. It will be very hot by the middle of April, and you won't be able to stay with me, Ruskin. Not at first, anyway. Not until I can get married, quarters, and then only if your mother returns. Meanwhile, you will stay with your grandmother in Dehra. You must have seen the disappointment in my face. He must have seen the disappointment in my face because he quickly added, Of course, I will come to see you often. Dehra isn't far from Delhi, only a night's train journey. But I was dismayed. It wasn't that I didn't want to stay with my grandmother, but I had grown so used to sharing my father's life and even watching him at work that the thought of being separated from him was unbearable. Not as bad as going to boarding school, he said, and that's the only alternative. Not boarding school, I said quickly. I'll run away from boarding school. Well, you won't want to run away from your grandmother. She's very fond of you. And if you come with me to Delhi, you will be alone all day in a stuffy little hut while I'm away at work. Sometimes I may have to go on tour. Then what happens? I don't mind living on my own, I said. And this was true. I had already grown accustomed to having my own room and my own trunk and my own bookshelf, and I felt as though I was about to lose these things. Will Aya come too? I asked. My father looked thoughtful. Would you like that? He asked. Aya must come, I said firmly, otherwise I'll run away. I'll have to ask her, said my father. Aya, it turned out, was quite ready to come with us. In fact, she was indignant that father should have considered leaving her behind. She had brought me up since my mother went away, and she wasn't going to hand over charge to any upstart aunt or governess. She was pleased and excited at the prospect of the move, and this helped to raise my spirits. What is Dera like? I asked my father. It's a green place, he said. It lies in a valley in the foothills of the Himalayas, and it's surrounded by forests. There are lots of trees in Dera. Does grandmother's house have trees? Yes, there's a big jackfruit tree in the garden. Your grandmother planted it when I was a boy. And there's an old banyan tree, which is good to climb. And there are fruit trees, lychees, mangoes, papayas. Are there any books? Grandmother's books won't interest you, but I'll be bringing your books from Delhi whenever I come to see you. I was beginning to look forward to the move. Changing houses had always been fun. Changing towns ought to be fun too. A few days before we left, I went to say goodbye to the Rani. I'm going away, I said. How lovely, said the Rani. I wish I could go away. Why don't you? I asked. They won't let me. They are afraid to let me out of the palace. What are they afraid of, Your Highness? I asked. That I might run away far, far away to the land where the leopards are learning to pray. Gosh, I thought she is really quite crazy. But then she was silent and started smoking a small hookah. She drew on the hookah, looked at me and asked, Where is your mother? I haven't got a mother, I said. Everyone has a mother. Did yours die? She asked. No, she went away, I said. So she drew on her hookah again and then said very sweetly, Don't go away. I must, I said. It's because of the war. What war? She said. Is there a war on? You see, no one tells me anything. Oh, it's between us and Hitler, I said. And who is Hitler? She asked. He is a German. I knew a German once, Dr. Schreiner. He had a beautiful hands. Was he an artist? Oh, he was a dentist. Then Rani got up from her couch and accompanied me out onto the balcony. There we looked down at the garden and could see Dukhi weeding a flower bed. Both of us gazed down at him in silence, and I wondered what the Rani would say if I asked her if she had ever been in love with the palace gardener. Aya had told me it would be an insulting question, so I